Join us on this week's Pembroke Dock Town-cast, where we'll have a little history lesson. All the good things that created Pembroke Dock, all the problems, all of the solutions that come with being a town that's often classed as the end of the line. Join us for that and a whole lot more on this week's Pembroke Dock Town-cast.
Be strong.
Welcome back to this week's Pembroke Dock Town-cast with me, Lee G. Pleasure to be back after my week away. It's nothing's happened while I've been away. Pembroke, all sorts of crazy stuff going on. But Pembroke Dock, pleased to say very little. I say pleased to say very little in the news. There is a little bit in the news, but I'm kind of going to cover all of that in with the talking bit from this week. So this week's show will be a little bit more condensed than normal. So I've had a week away, been on holiday, been to another part of the country, which is good to do quite often. You often appreciate the things that you have back home a little bit more than you do when you're the other side of the country. Things like being 5 minutes away from or 10 minutes away from a beach. I was talking to a bloke just at a bar, and he was from somewhere up north. I'm wanting to say north of Liverpool. He said somewhere, and I was just talking about Pembroke. He knew very little about Pembrokeshire or Pembroke Dock. I'm just saying how many beaches we had, how many, and when you go through and you name them, when you go, I got this and this and this and this and that, there's like 20 odd beaches in South Pembrokeshire. You're like, wow, that's a lot. And he says, and he's like, are they really beaches though? They're just places that's where the sea meets the land. We've got places where sea meets the land, but these are beaches, sandy beaches, lovely sandy beaches. So it's nice to remember sometimes actually that we've got a lot of stuff that people want to access. So I think I sold that guy a holiday in Pembrokeshire somewhere. So we can all do that at some point. Come and visit our town. And I'll kind of cover this off a little bit later as well, where you know I've tried to find events when I come home, so I do the searches, do the normal searches, Facebook and just general searches, and I can't find any. Can't find a single event on for this week. I search pub quizzes, I can find Carmarthen, I can find Swansea, loads of little towns up and around about there. Can't find anything going on in our town. And I know that that's not true. I know there's loads of stuff going on. We're just rubbish at marketing. We are really, really poor at marketing what we've got. We tell the people that we know that are already coming that there's an event. We will share all the information amongst ourselves, and we don't want to spread it too much. For somebody might come, somebody that we don't know might visit. So that kind of all rolls into my big one this week, my talky bit. But if you have an event, please, please, please tag me. No matter how irrelevant it is. What I can find on events is this is happening tonight. So somebody on Facebook will post something. We've got a band playing at a pub tonight, and you're like, that's not helping anyone. People need to plan. People need to work out what to do. People need to get babysitters. People need to just work out how they're going to manage to do it. So marketing what we do is really, really important. We are shooting ourselves in the foot consistently by not marketing ourselves very well. That's kind of my events for this week. What I will tell you is there are hundreds, probably thousands of people in places like Kiln Park, in Bluestone, in Tenby, in other, Saundersfoot, all of those places that will quite happily visit our town if we gave them a reason to and told them how to do it. Um, the whole thing about parking, have we got enough free parking, is a complete load of rubbish. Okay. And I've said this before. We put an event on in town. We've got ample amount of parking, paid and unpaid. When I went on a holiday, I paid parking. There was one place I visited where I kind of had the whole ticket and the parking was included in that. Everywhere else I went, I paid parking, and quite happily, you expect to pay parking. So yeah, just we've got that there, and we have got the facilities, we have got the town ready made to go and do that. And the more I was sitting there thinking, all of these people are, I'm spending my money in another part of the country. Why aren't we doing this back home? Was really, it was a little bit frustrating, but just the way my mind works, it's right. Okay, we can do a whole load of stuff back home. We need to have confidence to go out there and say to people, "Here are our events. Come and spend your money." And then we say to ourselves, "Come on, let's make this a great event." So, yeah, that was my kind of week. And the other thing that we don't give ourselves enough credit for as well at the minute. Okay. Um, so the week I was away was Black Bin Night. Now, some of us will remember that there was an absolute uproar when the council brought in once every 3 weeks. So we're going to move to, I think they moved to every 2 weeks to begin with, and then the big one was jumping to once every 3 weeks. Here's the reality of it. Okay, I got a family of five, three grown-up children. So normally two of them will be at home, by the way, university, this, that, and the other. So I've got grown-up children. I have lots of visitors. Last week was Black Bin Night. Do you know what? Didn't bother me at all. My black bins now are, I probably put out one black bin every 3 weeks. Yeah, you're allowed to put out three, maybe at Christmas. And if we have a big family party or something like that, there'll be a second black bag. But that's about it. So missing this one this week, I'll probably put out two, maybe two big ones for the next one. The vast majority of the rest of my stuff is recycled. I recycle all of my plastic. I recycle all of my soft plastic. My food waste either goes in my compost bin or in the food bag. All of my glass is recycled. There's very little that I have that I cannot recycle one way or another, or do something else with it. My black bin is the most underused part of my house. Um, and sometimes we forget how important that is. I say, oh, I went to a holiday park. I went to Centre Parks, okay, which kind of promotes itself on its ecologically friendly, and but we've got all these big trees and we recycle and all of this. The reality of going there, where there's a big sign that says, "Please recycle. Please help us recycle." That's it. Um, where you take, we've got red bins, blue bins, we've got paper bins, we've got food bins. So in Centre Parks there's a food waste bin under the sink, and then there's two bins, and it says please put recycling in one, non-recycling in another, and at the end of the week please take it to the recycle centre. I mean, it was ridiculous. I sat in a restaurant. I sat outside a restaurant. I was outside of Starbucks, um, and watched people at a bin. So there's a big bin there, and it says recycling, non-recycling. That's the only way they split it. They don't split. They do half the stuff that we do, recycling, non-recycling. And I watched two, maybe three people stand there with a plastic bottle, and it says on the recycling bit, it says plastic bottles, plastic trays, paper trays, for chips and that kind of stuff, or that goes in there, and the food waste in the other one. And they stand there and they look at it, and then they put it in the normal waste. And you're like, that would never happen down with us. You know, I was walking my dogs around the commons today, and I saw two kids, two little kids, maybe about 8 or 9, something like that. Genuinely, they were walking along. It was next to a bin. They were about 25, 30 yards ahead of me. They saw a plastic bottle on the ground. It wasn't theirs, but they saw a plastic bottle on the ground. They picked it up and they put it in the recycling bin, which was just a couple of yards ahead, you know. And we don't give ourselves enough credit for that, um, ever. You know, that is a really, really good thing. This is why we are the best place in Wales, probably in the UK, for recycling. And we need to take what we do and broadcast that around. We need to educate the rest of the country on actually this is how easy it is. I commented on a thread on Reddit. So I've set up some stuff for Pembroke and Pembroke Dock on Reddit as well. So if you're a Reddit user, you can find us on there. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% on Reddit yet. I'm still getting the hang of it. But I commented on a post on there that said somebody in Welsh government had said, you know, we should be aiming to collect non-recycled waste once every 4 weeks. And it's mainly people in the big cities, and I get people in big cities have got a different challenge where, you know, on our street there's 30 houses, each with between 2 and 4, maybe 5 people in. Um, and in that same space in a city, you could probably have a whole tower block with 150, 200 people in. So I get there are challenges and it's different. But when I said to people, hang on, what you all, people were losing it, like proper losing it. And I said, hang on, because we've been doing this in Pembrokeshire for quite a while. Before lockdown, it's before, I'm sure it was before lockdown. So we've been doing this maybe 8, 9 years, something like that. And yeah, there's a little couple of bumps to start with. And then actually after that, you just get used to it. You recycle more. All my soft plastic gets recycled at Tesco's. My hard plastics, or you're now the council will recycle your small electrics. Yeah. So, you know, this is really simple stuff. And I shared that when this was brought in, there was absolute, you know, this isn't going to work. We're going to be overrun with rats and foxes and seagulls inside a couple of months and things like that. And I was genuinely concerned, you know, was this going to work? And actually, I look at it now and I go, well, that was quite easy. You know, that was quite easy to do. I still have, you know, I say got 3 young adults living in the house, and every now and again I'll still find stuff in the recycling in the food waste bin, so in the normal waste bin that should be in recycling, and I'll just go, right, thank you very much, that goes in there. And go, oh, yeah, sorry, Dad, yeah, I forgot that. So yeah, it can be done, and yeah, that's the sort of stuff we should be shouting about. You know, I went in Centre Parks. They make a big thing about, you know, looking after the environment. Where actually they do very. They could take another 10 steps and still not be a patch on what we are and what we do. That's what we should be shouting about as well. Um, if you want to have a longer chat about waste and recycling, there will be more on my Pembroke Towncast, where somebody's a town councillor who came across a whole load of fly tipped stuff, um, and there are people trying to justify fly tipping on certain threads and all of this kind of stuff, which again, no excuse. So if you want to have a listen to that one, that will be on our Pembroke Towncast. So just a quick shout out, as always, if you're liking what you're seeing and what you're hearing, difficult to like what you're seeing. I'm gonna be honest with you on that, but you know what I mean. So if you're enjoying the podcast, please do like our YouTube page, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It makes a massive difference to us and helps us really spread the word. And like us on Facebook and our social media, again, helps us spread the word and get more people involved in that. So if you could do that for us, that would be fan-dabby dozy. So a little bit of news from us as well that I've said a couple of times, people are interested in getting involved and interested in helping us spread the word. Stay tuned on that in future episodes. Strong chance, fingers crossed, that we might be getting a little bit bigger, spreading the word a little bit bigger, and getting some other towncasts up and running. That's where we want to be. That's where we want to do. And while we're on that, then, as always, I am looking for people to present this for me. My plan always was to get this up and running and then kind of sit in the background, do the production, let people talk about Pembroke Dock, help them do the research. Then I'll move on. I'll do Haverfordwest, I'll do Tenby, Saundersfoot to get them up and running, blah, blah. And so it all kind of grows. So if you fancy coming and joining me on here, that will be fantastic. Drop me a line on ilovetowncast@gmail.com, or just pop a comment underneath our YouTube video or on our social medias. That will be ding dong. Thank you very much on that. Okay, let's do a little bit of chatty bit. So the chatty bit this week kind of comes from, it does come from a little bit of news, and something that I find quite difficult to level with. Okay, so my old rugby club, Pembroke Dock Quins, played for them for a long time, and let me be clear now. Okay, there's a load of really good stuff goes on at the Quins. There's a load of good players that do charity events. I've seen last weekend there was the kids event and things like that. I've seen lots of good people go in and through that club. So I'm going to put that out there to start with. There are some really, really good people inside that club. Okay. And this may have been a mistake or whatever, just poor judgment. But there was a post in the Herald about Reform AGM being held at the Quins. Okay. Now, regardless of what you think of Reform, this, that, and the other, okay, if you're a sports club, you steer clear of that. Yeah, anything like that, because you will have people in your club who are at complete other ends of the social spectrum. That's what makes a sports club, a rugby club, a football club, a cricket club a really good thing, is that you have a mix of people that learn how to converse. Okay. Throwing yourself out there to support one particular party, which is what it appears. I know they would have just rented the club, the function room out, may not have even known who it was, but that's anyway. It was done. So I know the several rugby clubs further up the line, Valleys, Carmarthenshire, up towards Aberystwyth Way and inland, particularly around Cardiff as well, in the big areas, Newport as well, where there are loads of clubs, have all turned down Reform in particular. So most of them don't turn down main parties, but they make it clear that we're not supporting them, but they've hired the hall. Okay. So when Reform comes to Pembroke Dock, so there are two parts of this. Okay, so there's a whole issue about Reform coming to Pembroke Dock and assuming that Pembroke Dock is going to support Reform. Okay, there's that. And then there's the post, or the social media post that was on there. Okay, so I went through a lot of the comments on there. The people in Swansea, people for some reason, lots of people in Swansea, quite a few in Milford. I found one post from a guy in Pembroke that said they're welcome to do it as long as they paid. Okay. People in Leeds, Birmingham, London, Manchester, um, somewhere on the south coast. I think it might be in Southampton or Portsmouth or somewhere like that. All saying that Pembroke Dock needs reform. Yeah, people who have no connection with our town whatsoever. There's one of the guys from, it wasn't in London, Essex somewhere. It was in, when you go onto his profile, he has a post on his profile saying, "What's the point of Wales?" Yeah. So what's the point of Wales? And he's supporting Reform's AGM in Pembroke Dock. Okay. So I just want to put that out there, that's the sort of issues that we're dealing with. There was also another comment on there from a local person, a former um, military person, that said, let's go get our hammers and sort out the people that were protesting out the front. Yeah, so there was a small protest out the front. There was a lot of very, very narrow-minded people who made a lot of assumptions about those people. And I know 90% of those people live in Pembroke Dock, whereas 95% of the people commenting on that post didn't even know where Pembroke Dock was. So there's one particular post, let's get our hammers and go and sort these protesters out. That's the issue with reform. Okay. So what I'm going to go through now is just put a couple of facts out there about Pembroke Dock. Okay. And Pembroke Dock is basically built on immigration. Pembroke Dock survives on immigration. Yeah. Pembroke Dock is classed as a end of the line town. Now I've mentioned this before, this end of the line theory, and it's something I've discussed with a lot of people. A lot of people in law enforcement. I've discussed this with. So this end of the line idea is that we're at the end of the train line, we're at the end of the road line, if you like. Some people will just get on a train and stay on it until they get kicked off or until the train stops and they end up in Pembroke Dock. Some people will just hitch a ride and at the end of the road is Pembroke Dock. So some people end up here not through choice. Yeah, they they just get here and then they go, right, okay, I'll try and find. So, and these are usually people that have issues, alcoholism, drug dependency, whatever it is. Okay, so that's one part of the end of the line. It sucks the worst people in. That's the person, the people that I was talking to in law enforcement said the end of the line will suck the people out, and when they get off the train they'll see other people that are in the same situation as them and they'll feel comfortable. Okay, none of these people are immigrants, by the way. So there's also this bit with the end of the line where it's very difficult to move up the line. So if you've got a house in Pembroke Dock, your the value of that house, if you can afford a 3-bed house in Pembroke Dock, the chances are by the time you get to Swansea, that's a 2-bed house in a dodgy area. By the time you get to Cardiff, you're lucky if that's a 1-bed flat. And that's why it's difficult to move the other way. You'll have people. I was talking to a mate of mine yesterday when I was walking the dog, where one of their first houses that I bought for £51,500, is now on the market for about 200, just under 200 grand, you know. And that was a 3-bed house, up by Bristol. So if I'm selling that house in Bristol now for 250, 300 grand, whatever. Let's say it's 200 grand. Okay. So I'm selling my house in Bristol for 200 grand. It's a three-bed house, 200 grand. I'm moving to Pembroke Dock. I'm buying a four-bed house with a nice garden and a garage in a nice area. That's the difference. If I try and go back the other way, am I going to sell up my four-bed house to buy a one-bed house? No, I'm not. So that's why the end of the line kind of captures people in. It's very difficult to improve your monetary wealth by existing, which is if you're living in London. Again, talking to my mate yesterday, that one of the first houses that we looked at in London when I used to live in London, and we chose not to buy in London. We chose to move down to Weston-super-Mare. We were looking at houses for 120, 130 grand for a three-bed house in just on the outskirts of London. Would have put us right at the very end of our purchase ability. But those houses now on that estate, they're now worth 400, 450 grand. So it does give you an example of why you kind of get stuck at the end of the line. So when you're stuck at the end of the line, you've got two options. You can accept it or you can fight against it. Now, for me, I'm a big believer in fighting against it. Okay. And what I mean by that is we have to do things, as I've said before, we have to do things to control our own future. So I'm gonna take that there. I'm gonna park that there for a second. Okay, but this bit that we're at the end of the line and we're kind of almost looked down on by people further up the line, and to a certain extent, well, ourselves, which again we've touched on before, where we keep pushing ourselves down and down and down, and we don't need to. So I'm going to park that to one side, and then I'm going to go and look at the other part of Pembroke Dock, okay, which is the history of Pembroke Dock. So Pembroke Dock is not an old town. 1814. It's 210 years old. Okay. In 1814, Pembroke Dock was a collection of fishermen's cottages and a couple of farmhouses and a church, Pater Church. It was Pembroke Dock didn't even exist. It was a Pater or Pater Church, then became a Pater Dock, which, as time went on, then became Pembroke Dock. Okay, so Pater and Pater Dock were the original names of Pembroke. So when the Admiralty, as it was then, or central government in those days, decided that it had bought a whole load of land, it originally wanted to buy in Milford Haven, Milford, which at the time Milford didn't really exist. It was a small fishing village and what have you. But because of the structure of the estuary, it was identified that this would be a good place for building boats. Lots of research was done, lots of bribery was done, no doubt. And the Admiralty decided to build in Pembroke Dock. So the population of Pater Church, Pater Dock, the population of Pater Church at that time was less than 50. Yeah, it was a small, tiny little village, a couple of fishermen, end of. Okay. So inside 5 years, 5,000 people had moved into Pembroke Dock. Yeah. So you imagine taking a village the size of, I don't think you could see a village that maybe not even Bosherston. It was tiny. A couple of places tiny. It wasn't even the size of what we now class as the dockyard. You know, They were, it wouldn't have filled that. And then you go, right, 5,000 people inside 2 or 3 years. They were not local people. They were people from all over the country, all over the world. The problem with this is that we don't have census information from the 1800s. The 1821 census um, didn't have nationality as an identity. It literally had numbers. So what we know is it went from barely anything to 5,000, and by the 1901 census, there was nine, no, what was it, 11,000, just over 11,000 people in 1901. That was peak. That was kind of peak. Um, and then it kind of slowly worked its way down and then started closing. The dockyard manufacturing sites that closed in about 1925 or whatever. So we're up to 11,000 people in 75 years, something like that. Yeah, probably less, in all honesty. The the town, particularly way back at the start, there was nothing provided. There were no streets. There was certainly no traffic. There was no heavy lorries coming through or anything like that. The town was built by the people who came to work here. Yeah, there was very little in the way of regulation. Um, they built the grid system themselves. They looked at it and they went, you know what, if we're gonna exist, let's build it in squares. People would help each other to build their houses on weekends and evenings. They'd go to work, they'd come back, and they'd each do a little bit on each other's house until they built it. There were no street lighting, there was no roads, but there was no street lighting either. So everybody put a light outside their house to light the street. Okay. We did that as a community. That is the basis of our community. And it was a community that built itself by encouraging people from outside to come in. And the more people we sucked in from outside and said, hey, this is a great place to come, but actually, this is how we behave in this town. Yeah. We established our own law and order, if you like. Before police and council and regulations and all of that came, we policed ourselves. We put our own regulations in how to build houses. We had a certain standard that we built to. And we made sure of that by everybody helping each other, regardless of where they came from, regardless of what their religion was, regardless of what we thought of them. We did it because we were building a town. Yeah. And sometimes some people in our town forget that. Some people forget that actually all the stuff that we talk about, which is great in our town, is all the stuff they want to destroy and all the stuff they want to take away. That spirit of living in Pembroke Dock has been forgotten. Yes, it has been forgotten. And that is not because of Pembroke Dock per se, that's because of society. Societal moves, the internet, television, influences coming from outside, media influences upon you and your thought process and all of those kind of things. Yeah. So people telling you, hey, here's a problem. Here's a problem. They see that guy over there. He's the problem. Whereas we used to see that guy over there and we used to go, hey, you're part of our town, you're part of our society. Let's help you. Let's build you a house. Let's get you a job. Let's do that. That's how we used to behave. Yeah. So when you want to talk about the old times and the olden days, that's how we used to behave. That's how this town was built. Yeah. You when you take people and tell them that that other person in the town is a problem, then what you do is you split people. And that's what it is. That's how reform work, basically. They split people and they go, right, bump, okay, you lot, you're not the same. You're all different. And you, this group over here, do you know what your problem is? It's this group over here. It's not. The problem is the people telling you who the problem are. And that's why we need to be very, very aware and open about who reform are and what reform. This is a town where Pembroke Dock went through a series of different, you know, military, not encampments, but it was built on the navy. Then there's the army garrison, and obviously the RAF flying boats. Yeah, so all of those things were about fighting the very the very thought process that feeds reform. Yeah, these our town grew massively because we fought against people that think the same way Farage does now. Okay. And whether you like that or not, though, that's the fact. Yeah. We've got too many people telling us who the enemy are, and not enough of us saying, actually, the people, with the perception that immigration is an issue in Pembroke Dock is an absolute fallacy. And I'm just going to share something with you now. Okay, so this is a website called City Population, which basically takes the information out of the census and instructs a visual presentation for you. Okay, so when they tell you that we're overrun with people who are retired people, okay, we aren't. 57.7% of our people in Pembroke Dock are working age. Okay, when you look at our age distribution, actually, we're pretty much consistent all the way along. There is a small jump here, but that's because there's a small dip there. So in between 50 and 60, there's a small dip. I'm in that bracket there, by the way, very nearly. So you look at that and you go, oh, okay, well, that doesn't really tell it. What that tells us is that the age structure is pretty much normal for the rest of the country. Okay. Then you come down here. Okay. Country of birth, UK. 94.8% of us in Pembroke Dock were born in the UK. Okay. 95% were born in the UK. The EU there is 3%. Okay. The rest of the world, 1.2%. Yeah. We do not have a problem with immigration. If anything, we have a problem that our society is not diverse enough. That is a very, very insular society that is not capable of expanding and growing. Okay. So the idea that we've got an immigration problem in Pembroke Dock, absolute horse do. Okay. Ethnic group. Look at that again. 97% of us are white in Pembroke Dock. Yeah. You go tell me, go find a way of justifying that we've got too many immigrants in Pembroke Dock. Absolute excrement on that. Yeah. These are not made up figures. These are figures pulled from the latest census. Okay. You then look at this one down here, religion, and the bit that annoys me with reform is they make themselves out to be white British Christian. Okay, those are their three key pointers. Like everybody else, we're white British Christian here, which is absolute load of crap, because most people in Pembroke Dock are not Christian. Yeah, 51.6% are no religion. Yeah, and I'm willing to bet that quite a large percentage of that Christian are non-practicing Christians. Okay, so you cannot tell me that there is a problem anywhere in here on anything that Reform can hang their hat on. There's no immigration issue. There's no. I say if the issue is that there aren't enough people from other countries. There aren't enough non-white people. There aren't enough people that will try to change things in Pembroke Dock. Okay, so the other bit I wanted to look at here, I suppose you can kind of see that now. Um, Basically, Pembroke Dock at the minute is shrinking. Okay, there is a here we go up the top here. So at the minute, so that's the 2001 census, 8,676. 2011, 9,700, and 2021, 9,600. That's shrinking. Okay. At the start of the century, sorry, 1900, there were over 11,000 people here. Okay. And they all got on and they all worked together and they were all perfectly okay. Okay. So when people tell you that, Reform have got solutions to Pembroke Dock. They don't have solutions to Pembroke Dock. What they have is an ideology that sets people against each other. That is not what Pembroke Dock was built on. That is no way that Pembroke Dock was anything other than an immigration town. 5,000 people didn't suddenly spring up and say, "Hey, I'm from Pembroke Dock." Okay. They were brought in. The first people to work in the docks in Pembroke Dock lived on a boat because there were no houses here to house them. Yeah. They literally ran a boat aground and then started to build the docks. And then they started to build their houses. Yeah. And then they brought more people in by boat. This is a town built on tolerance, acceptance, and community. And sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we forget that actually we built this town, our ancestors built this town on tolerance and community. We had certain standards that we held each other to, and one of them was accepting people and helping them to make a better life for themselves. So when one of these idiots comes around your door and says, "Hey, look at all these problems." Yeah, they are not your problems, they are their problems. They are their problems, not yours. That is not the problem with Pembroke Dock. The problem with Pembroke Dock is we've allowed these people to tell us that the person we need to hate is just around the corner. We've allowed them to tell us that there are people we need to hate, and all of these problems are not your problems. They've been made by somebody else. Again, that's complete rubbish. All of our problems in Pembroke Dock come from ourselves. They come from ourselves and our lack of willingness to go and put the effort in to make this town a better place. As I've said before, the key to our success in the future is ourselves. We need to take control of what we do. We need to say, right, okay, we are going to shop locally. We are going to shop at the local butchers. We are going to shop at the local veg store. We are going to shop. And yes, it will take a bit of time. Yes, it will take a bit of effort. But we have to go and do something different if we want to make this town a better place. We have to say, let's put an event on and let's go and make this. And let's go and tell all the rest of the world what a great event this is. Let's encourage people in. Let's welcome people in. Let's welcome people to our invite. This is the other bit that I wanted to say about my holiday was so we went out of Centre Parks and went to a local supermarket, and there was a bunch of kids outside the supermarket, and you always get worried about a group of kids sitting outside the supermarket. And this old lady kind of wanted to get a trolley. There's one of those put a pound in things. And without asking or whatever, one of those kids jumped down off their little seat and went, "I'll help you with that, missus." because she couldn't get the pound coin in. So he put the pound coin in, got the trolley out for her, and just helped her. Yeah. And I sat there and I then came home and I went shopping in Tesco's in Pembroke Dock, and there were three young girls sat outside on the bench outside that you had to walk past to get to the trolley bay, shouting and swearing and insulting people as they were walking past. And I'm like, that is typical of the attitude that we need to get rid of. That is not what we need to promote Pembroke Dock as. That's, you know, we need to be out there saying to our kids that they're ambassadors of this town. Everything that they do, they're ambassador. Every time you drive through our town, you're an ambassador from our town because people are watching you. People are wondering what you are, who you are, and what you do. And every single thing you do creates a message about somebody else. Yeah. And some of the comments on that post that I was telling you about earlier were, it's Pembroke Dock. What do you expect? Pembroke Dock was something like uh, Pembroke Dock is welcome to itself. Yeah, suggesting that do you know what? If you vote for them, you deserve everything you get. So, we as residents of this town, as the people brought up in this town, need to really take a look at ourselves and go, okay, how do we want this to go forward? How do we want people to view our town? How do we want people to think about our town? Because I've said this before. I've said that virtually identical to previous. But if we don't control the narrative for ourselves, other people will, and they will manipulate that narrative for their benefit. No, nobody's manipulating that narrative for the benefit of the town. We have to control it. So that's me, that's you, that's our town councillors, that's our police officers, that's our kids, our teachers, our sports clubs. Every single one of us has an opportunity to make this town a better place, but we can't do that sat there on our backsides, not doing anything. So that's kind of where I wanted to bring this around to was, we've got a lot of stuff there that, yes, we're at the end of the line. Yes, we've got a lot of issues, but actually the solution to those issues lie inside us. I hope that the Quins are not supporters of reform. I was kind of hoping and looking forward to going back down and watching a few games this year. I certainly won't be doing that uh, if that's the image the club wishes to project. But what I will be doing is absolutely pointing out to people how this town was built, who built this town, how it became what it became, and what this town stood for. This town stood for more than any other town in the UK, more than anywhere else you go. This town, Pembroke Dock, stood for people who wanted to fight for the right thing. And we fought against everything that reform stands for. Okay, that's the end of that one. That's the end of that little bit. So, quick reminder: if you do want to come and join us, by all means, drop me an email, ilovetowncast@gmail.com. And if you could drop us a quick subscription at the same time, that would be most appreciated. Okay, let's have a quickie look at the sport. So, cricket, as always, if you are a member of another sports club and you want me to talk about it, then please do get in touch. So, top of the table, I mean, Division 1 at the minute is looking proper tasty. It's a ding-dong battle between Preseli and Carew. So I wasn't around last week, I did kind of try to point out where we were going. So let's have a look at the results from last week. So Cresselli beat Burton, but it's quite a low total there. And so to put 110 on the board, yes, it's a win, but they would have liked to put more runs on the board there. Carew beat Whitland again. For Division One, these are low totals, but if you're batting second, you can only pass that total. And Loreni, I mean, this is becoming a joke now. Loreni beat Langham, bowled all out for 39, and Loreni passed at 41 for. I mean, I think we said this last week. Langham are rapidly becoming a bit of a disgrace at the bottom of the table. How they've got 41 points is beyond me. Those are all batting points, must be. So, table then, Cresselli top on 192 points, Carew in second on 186, Loreni mid-table. So Loreni, yeah, so that was, but Loreni beat Carew the week before. That was the bit that I was looking for. Then yeah, so I mean, Loreni beating Carew was pretty awesome. If I look back on, I think I can't remember if I'd covered these or not. So Loreni beating Carew, Langham lost to Haverfordwest. Cresselli beat Nayland. Yes, I was talking about that. Again, 58, all out for 58. Something is wrong with that. They need to be posting more than that on there. Anyway, it leaves us in this situation here. Cresselli top, Carew in second, and Loreni in sixth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, Loreni in sixth on 138 points. I'd say it's a bit of a big jump for Loreni to get anywhere near the top of the table now, but they're certainly looking good to overtake Nayland and could probably catch Herbernston in fourth place on that. So fixtures for 12th of July, Cresselli against Haverfordwest. Realistically, Cresselli should be winning that. Herbernston and Loreni, excellent mid-table clash. If Loreni come away with a win on that one, then yeah, top four looks good for them. And then this is the juicy one down the bottom here: Saundersfoot and Carew. Saundersfoot in third, Carew in second. You know, if Saundersfoot win this one, then the battle for second place is properly on. Carew win that one, then yeah, they pretty much secured second place. So this is a huge fixture for this weekend. So that's my pick of this week, Saundersfoot and Carew. That's going to be a game that we're all going to want to see on that one. Let's have a look at Division 2. We'll quickly run through Division 2. So Cresselli seconds lost to Johnston by 10 wickets. That's gutting. That's a gutting fixture. That's a gut. Just that result, all out for 129, and then passing it with the loss of no wickets. Hook beat Carew seconds. Again, I mean they're decent scores, but you know that's the way it is. Week before that, Carew seconds lost to Lechrid, and Cresselli seconds beat Narberth. I think that was the game that we were looking forward to. Where does that leave us in the table? Yeah, mid-table, Cresselli. I'd say both of those two are safe. And Ryan and Burton seconds kind of drifting away down the bottom end of the table there. Quite a bit of work to do for Carew seconds to move up the table. But, you know, stranger things have happened. So Carew seconds placing Ishmael's this weekend, and Hook host Cresselli seconds as well on there. So yeah, I mean realistically, two good games there. Yeah, I think we can hope for some decent wins. Division 3. This is where the sexy people live. Okay, let's have a little look at Stackpole, all out for 90, lost to Pembroke Dock, 91 for naught. Pembroke Dock won by 10 wickets. That's a nice one. I'm liking that one. I'm liking that. Week before, this was again the other one that could have been a bit of a sticky one. 73 for three. Pembroke Dock 73 for three beat Lamphey all out for 70. I mean, the disappointing bit on that is that we've obviously batted second in both of those. Pembroke Dock is capable of putting 150, 200 runs on the board in pretty much every game now. So it is a shame that we're batting second, but you can only play the game. So here we go. Oh, this is Fishguard Pembroke Dock, top of the table. Fishguard is top on 186 points, and the Dock second on 184. This week's fixtures: bump, bump, bum. Pembroke Dock against Hook seconds. So we are Hook seconds, bottom of the table. Again, the Dock are looking really strong. We need to be batting first. We need to go, right, okay, we're going to post some big runs on the board. We're going to put 200 on the board and start building up some batting some batting points. Looking ahead to next week, so I'll cover this next week, but that's the one. That's the game there. Somehow Pembroke Dock managed to play twice on the same day there. Anyway, we'll cover that one next week. Let's have a look in Division 4 on that one. Results from last week. So Carew thirds lost to Pembroke seconds. That looks like a genuine close game, that one. That looks quite a good game. But who else do we have in that? So Saundersfoot seconds lost to Loreni seconds. Again, some decent figures being popped up there. Previous week then, 28th of June, Carew thirds beat Haverfordwest thirds, and just looking for Loreni seconds. Yeah, Loreni seconds beat Narberth seconds on that. So table should be looking quite nice. Pembroke seconds top of that table. But if we look down, Loreni seconds, Carew's thirds, mid-table again. I'd say safe, 125 points, 104 points. Yeah, not completely safe, not complete. It's not a done deal yet, but got to be confident, I think, going into the last couple of weeks of the league. Let's have a look at Division 5. Now, this is where the real pretty boys exist. Okay, so results from the last 2 weeks then. Gutted on that one. So the Dock seconds lost to Herbernston seconds by 132 runs. That's a big total. 234 for 7 is a big total, and the Dock seconds all out for 102. Previous week on there, Lechford seconds beat the Dock seconds. Oh, boys. It's all gone pear-shaped. So we've gone from top of the table. No, I think we're second in the table. So yeah, 2 losses. Dropped us to third. And this week we are playing Hundleton seconds. Okay, so Hundleton seconds are third from bottom. Yeah, I mean, you really expect us to do that. Crosselly thirds this week against Neyland thirds. Is that the game that was missing? Yeah, there was a fixture missing there. Yeah, Crosselly thirds, Neyland thirds. Where would you expect that to finish? Crosselly thirds there. Neyland, yeah. Even down that end of the table, Crosselly should be expecting to win that one. Okay, Division 6 then. Round it off in style in the league in the division that nobody truly understands. Haverfordwest Crosselly lost to Whitland thirds. And then the week before, Lamphey seconds beat Haverfordwest Crosselly. Yeah. So where does that leave us in the table? Haverfordwest Crosselly there, mid-table. But does anybody really understand? Not really on that one there. Okay, that is the end of sport. So, yeah, I know people are going to criticize and be political or whatever on this week's pod, and you're welcome to. You're welcome to, because everything I've said is researched. Okay. Um, and this town that we have, that we are custodians of for a very, very short, brief period of time, it's our job to leave it in a better shape than when we started. And the one thing that I can assure you on is, if you think times are bad now, vote reform and see how bad they get. So, on that one, I shall bid you farewell, and I shall see you again next week. All the very best. Good night. Be strong.